Hello, Shamila. How is it going today?
Hi there. Let me put my glasses on so I can see you properly. Don't always wear it.
Key
Yeah,
accessory, isn't it, for writers?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, welcome along. Good to see you, and good to see everyone else who's going to be joining us. We'll just have a quick chat for a couple of minutes while everyone comes in. But yeah, tell us where you are joining us from and what you think about AI writing. Do you use it? Have you been using AI? So just drop that in the messages, and we'll see where everyone is. But
Hmm.
yeah, question for you, Shamila. What have you been working on this week?
So, firstly, is anyone here yet? I can't tell. How do you tell?
Yeah, looks like we have 38 people so far joined us, people
Oh, wonderful.
coming in. So if you look on the LinkedIn event
Hi.
page, you
All
can
right.
see
Hi. Say hi.
where people are from. Lots of people commenting already.
Okay. I can't see that. Okay.
Yes, it looks like Johannes is here. Welcome, Johannes from Germany. We've got Gabriella here. Hello.
Is this
A
not
few
on
more
my
people.
side? Ah, there we go. Hi. I can
We can
see
chat.
everyone
Yeah,
now.
might just
Hello.
be taking a while to come through.
Ah, there's someone from my neighboring camp. Oh, South Africa. There we go. Hi, Tapelo.
Shamila, tell us what you've been working on this week. Stop just looking at nose, having a nose
Well,
around
I want to
the,
see
the
who's
chat.
here. I'm excited to see who's here and to chat to people that I've been chatting to on LinkedIn all this time. And this is my first live, so they get to meet me for the first time. What have I been working on this week? I've been trying to get my book going. I've been trying to get my book going since January because I've been so busy working on everyone else's books that I haven't had a chance to work on my own book. And I've been reading up a lot of stuff on chat, on AI writers.
What is your
Um,
book about? Tell everyone. Or is it a secret
no,
book?
I'm keeping it a
Oh,
secret
okay.
until it's ready to be released. And I've done a couple of manuscript reviews. Oh, really, one on a nonfiction manuscript review. Very interesting. Yeah, so that was my week. Not too busy.
Nice. That's great. My book or my next book project is always on the back burner.
Right.
Keeps getting put further
With
and
a work
further
in
onto the back
progress.
burner. I just wrote a newsletter today about how I'm not in the right creative mode for it, but it will get written at some point. Brilliant. We've got loads of people tuning in.
Yeah, I
The
see
Kenya,
that.
the US,
And we've got the
Pakistan.
comment.
Yeah, so thanks for telling us. There's Dr. Phil saying he's a fan of AI in a creation workflow to draw outlines. Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks for that comment. And feel free to use the chat, everybody, just to give your thoughts on uh, the AI tools that have become very well known this year and what makes writing human as well. That's what we're here to talk about today. Before we do that, Shamila, would you
Hmm.
like to introduce yourself? Who are you
Hmm.
and
I
what
was
do
just
you do?
about to say that we're doing a little bit of a babble here just for the first few minutes while we wait for more people to join us. And before we start with our discussion, who am I? Well, many of you know me already from LinkedIn. I have been working as, well, I worked as a writer for a long time and as an author of a few books, and then transitioned into coaching, writing coach and mentor, and as a book coach. I've actually been doing a lot of work this year as a coach for authors, for aspiring authors who are writing their first books, as well as for authors who have written their books. And I've been doing a lot of editing, book editing, and manuscript reviewing, which I'm really enjoying. And I transitioned into that after I realized in December last year that chat has come along, or other AI generative writers have come along, and that we should be looking at diversifying a little bit. So that's what I've done. And Philip,
Right.
what have you been
Thank-
up to?
Thanks for the intro. Yeah, hopefully lots of people here know who I am, but I'm Phil. I'm a writing coach for multilingual writers, writers who work in English, professional writers, like copywriters or content writers or medical or science writers. And yeah, help people write in an efficient way, which is going to hopefully earn them more money and get them more opportunities. That's what I like to do. I can see a few people that I've worked with here in the chat. So great, and thanks for coming along. Yeah, and I should say, of course, feel free to message Shamila or I on LinkedIn or connect if you're not connected. And
Hi, everyone. Those who I don't know that are Philip's connections. Hi. How many languages do you speak for? From Imran.
yeah, we've got questions already. Great. I speak two languages, really, Imran. I speak English and Spanish because I'm from the UK, but I live in Spain. I understand a couple of other European languages, French, Italian, German. I can get the gist of them, but I'm not a, incredibly multilingual person. I just help multilingual writers. How many languages do you speak? I'm sure it's more than me. Great. Well, let's tell everyone, Shamila, why we chose this topic and what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, so what we've noticed is, and I've particularly had lots of DMs and questions in my DMs about this from writers, particularly writers who write articles and blog articles and ghostwriters, are a bit apprehensive about AI generative writers. And when I talk about AI writers, I'm talking about I'm going to say Gen AI. We call them Gen AI. I'm not talking about the tools like Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid. We're talking about the actual writers like Bard and Claude and ChatGPT and so on. That's going to be our focus today. But we are not, Phil and I are not AI experts. So we're not going to be talking about AI as such. We're going to be talking about how we, as writers, will be standing out next year in 2024, given all of the AI writing that has come about. And this is why we've decided to host this webinar today, because we've heard a lot of chatter amongst freelance writers about their concerns that AI is going to replace them. We don't think so, but we will chat about that a bit later and tell you why we don't think so.
Yeah, to add to that, I'd say for me, it's about value. As writers, we want to offer the most valuable services. And we're not against AI. We're not going to say, oh, don't use it. It's, ruining the industry. Of course, we're all going to have to adapt to like new tools that come along. And really, my perspective is if we start to think about what AI cannot do because of its nature and what humans can, that's where you add value. So that's why in this session, we're going to give tips and thoughts about some things like writing voice and humor and lots of other aspects that, ChatGPT and Bard can't really do because of the nature of language as well. So that all fits into it. And yeah, we just want to give you some ways that you can really focus on delivering human-centered content that is going to sell well.
So very practical, really. It's really about giving you a whole lot of tips that that we hope that will help to develop your writing skills.
Yeah, great. And feel
Are
free
we
to ask
waiting?
questions as well in the chat. We'll be answering them at the end. Sorry to interrupt, Shamina.
No, I'm just wondering if we're still going to wait for more people to join, or are we
We've got
starting our
62
discussions?
people joining at the moment.
Good.
63 people, as I said that. So I think everyone who's here, Maria has just joined us. Hi, Maria.
Hi,
Yeah,
Maria.
everyone who's coming is going to be here, and other people can watch on the replay. So quick wave if you're watching on the replay.
All right, so you're not too late. We were just doing the introductions, and we haven't actually started a discussion on, on the topic for today. Shall we carry on?
Let's start. You talked a little bit, Shamila, about what counts as AI, and you mentioned we're going to be talking about generative AI rather than just any
Yeah.
tech tools which help us with our writing. That's really what we're discussing. Is sort of how human writing, aspects of it are going to be quite different to what is produced by generative AI which passes human writing. So yeah, did you have any other thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, do you want to talk about your tips and tricks and so on now, or shall we talk about what makes us so different, what makes humans stand out, what makes us so different from these AI generative writing tools?
Yeah, I'll
There's a whole slew of things. I mean, you know,
yeah, there's so much to get into. Well,
yeah.
I'll kick off by giving my 2 cents on why we're here and what we're talking about today, and then you can give your tips to everybody and tell them how to write in a human way. So I think of, we often think of generative AI as a machine. I like to think of it as a box. It's a very clever box that an incredible amount can go into, and it can produce things very quickly. But it's this kind of magical box that we put a prompt into, and it spits words out. And those words are like recognizable content that we think is similar to other writing that it's passed, that it's scanned and crawled. But as writers, we know that there's a lot more to the writing process than the typing of words, right? Than
Hmm.
copy pasting and organizing those ideas. So that's what I would say is one of the main ways that we can focus on being human and offering value as writers is everything that goes into the machine. And that's not a prompt. A prompt is how we operate the machine. A prompt is pushing buttons and pulling levers, right? We can copy paste a prompt from a big spreadsheet. That's operating the machine. And we know that machine operators aren't really well paid because many people can be trained to operate a machine. But what we want to do is train ourselves as writers to think of all the stuff that goes into the fabrication of articles, right? You're probably going to be better off if you're the person who can think of a great product that everyone wants rather than make that product in a factory. So that's really the stuff that I'm talking about. And that's text analysis, the development of ideas, the creative process, all of the research that you do, the understanding of people and their minds that we build through all of our years, and expertise in our field as well. If you've got a niche like finance or pets or health writing, whatever it is, then your um, you know encounters with experts in that field are something that all of the content that's crunched by this machine doesn't have. So that's all the stuff that goes into the machine. That's my perspective about how you can build on it. Don't focus on what AI can do. Focus on what it can't do,
Right. Can't do.
because
Yeah.
that's where we build value.
Yep. And I'm looking at it from a human perspective. And what do we have? What do humans bring to the table? What makes writing more human, or what makes writing human? And that is the huge thing that we have that chat and Bard and whoever does not have, and that is our creativity, our ability to be original. That is immense. Human imagination knows no bounds, as we know. And that is one of our strong points. That is where we're going to stand out in our creativity, in our ability to produce original ideas, original content, in our ability to basically to think critically. Machines don't do that. Can machines think critically? No. So we've got a range of human qualities that are our strengths that we can play on that the machines are not going to catch up on just yet. I'm not sure in the future, but not for now. Right, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, as Shamila said, we're not AI experts, and I'm sure people out there will say, "Oh, hey, in 1 year, these programs will be able to do X, Y, and Z, like incredible things." But from my idea, there's a lot of functions because of the way language is built. These tools are LLMs. Um, they analyze huge chunks of language, and they do things like they pick the most frequent words and they say, well, that's a good word to use because it's the
Mm.
most frequent. But as humans, we know that that's not right, because if you've got of word which is too frequent, it becomes a buzzword or a cliche, and your writing doesn't stand out. So that's just one way that I would say we can identify what these LLMs will never be able to do. They'll never be able to select a nuanced word because there's no amount of data that can provide the background for that. Shamila, do you have any more
I'm just
tips
reading what
or
Imran is saying, that machines are being trained for that, and that in the near future it will be a lot more scary, because they're already being trained to be as creative as we can be. Is that what you're saying, Imran? That they can be as creative as we can be? I don't know about that, because if you look at it, Gen AI writing tools as they stand, where do they get their information from? Where do they get their ideas from? I mean, that's just been input. That's just data that they have access to. They will never be able to produce data or information or ideas that we will be able to. We will constantly be able to provide to produce new ideas that you won't find on one of these. What can I call them? You said machine for Gen AI, the Gen AI writing tools.
yeah, we're going to get into storytelling a little bit later, I think.
Yeah, storytelling is a big part of it. But I mean, there's so much, like you mentioned, there's the nuances. They will never understand the fine nuances of language, of the words, of the subtleties. They're not going to be able to write. Can they do sarcasm? Can they, do any of the? Can they do humor? Can they? Our voices are so distinct. Can they emulate our distinct voices? So Phil and I were talking about what they can't do so that we can take advantage of what they can't do and enhance these abilities that we have in our writing. And do you want to continue first?
No, you go for it. Let's share your
Because I know you
tip
have a
or
whole lot
your
to say on the storytelling.
yeah. That's we
And
can get onto that later. Why don't you start and maybe give people some kind of advice or direction to go in uh, on some of the things we talked about, humor or voice or uh, adding this personal touch.
so what I have done personally, look, I don't use AI to write content for me. But what I've done is I've experimented with AI. I've read a lot about it. I've seen work that is produced by the Gen AI tools. We all know what it looks like. You can recognize it, and you can recognize the posts on LinkedIn. That little rocket ship is a dead giveaway in the headlines. As soon as you see that little rocket ship on the headline, you know that that's a chat post. We've seen the comments that come out on LinkedIn, and we recognize that they are also generated. They're not. What is missing? Why is it so obvious that we can recognize that those are not written by humans? And not some people have said to me, but how do you know this? How can you recognize it? You can if you have experience, and if you're an experienced writer, and if you've been reading a lot, you can see the things that are missing. And one of the things you can definitely see that is missing is that what we have, that special what makes us human, things like empathy, things like our personal experiences, the personal touch that we give to our writing, our essence, our human essence, our warmth comes out in our writing, our emotions come out in our writing. Yes, people will say, but you can prompt Gen AI to, you can tell it, write in this way, write using this kind of emotion. But then we have our personal experiences that we put in, and those little anecdotes that we put in, the little quirks that we have, our imperfections. I mean, look at me. I'm saying and and I do that in my writing as well, and that comes out, and we recognize people's writing. Do you know that I can scroll a LinkedIn feed and I can tell you who's written a post without actually looking at the name? I've seen the style of writing that people have, and it's easy to see if they move from their usual writing and if they've had a post written by by generative AI. It's so easy to tell.
What kind of things do you, sorry to jump in, what kind of things do you notice in somebody's style that it's like a
You
giveaway?
can definitely tell from their style,
I
from
mean,
the
I
style of
agree.
their writing, the tone of their writing, and just how they put words together and the words that they use, the vocabulary they use, the language they use. People often use the same type of language, the same words and same vocabulary, and they write in a certain way. You can see from their paragraph structure, and you can see from their sentence structure. And I could tell when people started writing using the chat, for instance, when chat first came out. You can tell from the errors. That's a dead giveaway. Because if you make errors in your writing, and I've noticed people do this, obviously as an editor, when I'm reading something, it's natural, okay? And suddenly there were posts without these errors. Now you didn't suddenly become so good at English writing overnight. So it's those little things, those little imperfections that we have. That can be picked up, and that you can see that it's not us that have written this. What else? The way we use words, the way we use humor in our writing. We all know that AI cannot emulate the humor that we have, which comes naturally to us. I know you want to speak more about that later on. Do you want
Yeah,
to jump in now?
just before we get onto humour, because I love a bit of funny writing, and I'm going to chat about that, and you too, Shamila, I think. But yeah, just before that, I wanted to say, just expand on what I talked about with vocabulary and these overused words. So one dead giveaway, like Shamila said, with ChatGPT posts, is it recognises buzzwords as good or correct words, right?
Yeah.
It will
Yeah.
crawl 28,000 LinkedIn posts and see words like supercharge and boost and steal my strategy and all of these sort of
And
hook
use
words,
it.
and it will use it because it
Yeah.
goes, oh, that's the best word to use because my data set says that's the the most used hook words. But is that good? No, because it's a buzzword and you just ignore it because it's the same as everyone else's, and we pay attention to difference, not to the noise. So my advice on that would be to start paying attention to words which are more unique. Use a thesaurus to find words which you recognize and you're happy with the meaning of, but are slightly different. So instead of boost, you could say spike or slam or something like that, which is equally impactful but maybe not overused. And keep all of these words on file. You can keep a swipe file or a spreadsheet or however you want to organize it, but make it as detailed as possible. Right? If you're a finance writer and you write about mortgages and fintech, then you could have two different files for those. So get as detailed as you can and make use of all kinds of thesauruses. There's ones like Power Thesaurus, One Look Thesaurus. There's plenty online that are user generated as well. So use them and avoid buzzwords. That's my
Although,
being
Phil,
human.
I have a word of caution here with the thesaurus use. What I've noticed is that a lot of multilingual writers tend to use the thesaurus and just replace a word that doesn't fit into the context. So we have to be so careful with that as well. I mean,
Good
generative
point.
AI does that. We'll put a word in that doesn't fit into the context, but we as human writers know that this is a particular word that we use in this context and not in that context. I did a post this week on overuse of the word authentic. And I gave a few examples of other words that could be used instead of authentic. And someone said, but why do we have to have so many different word choices in English? Why can't we just use the one word? But that's it, isn't it? That is our creativity. That is how we can be creative, by being different. We don't all want to use the same word all the time. Imagine repeating the word authentic a few times in your copy instead of saying real or true or whatever. So the essence of it is that we don't want everything to sound the same. We don't want everything to sound robotic. We want it to be different. We want it to be distinct. We want to be able to stand out with our copy and our writing, and our content. And
definitely. The more expert writers have a much broader vocabulary, and when it's right to use words which are more standout words, they can adapt and use them. Again, think what AI can and can't do. It can't use those nuanced words. So that's your job as a writer to try and improve your vocabulary, however you do that.
So the other thing is, yes, I agree. I see somebody in the comments has said that AI won't remain as AI is now, generative AI. And yes, that is what's going to happen. But it is going to get better. Obviously, it has gotten better since December when it was first introduced as ChatGPT 3, and ChatGPT 4 can write some really great copy. I mean, I've seen it. Recently, a company asked me to go through some of their landing pages and website copy that Chat had done, ChatGPT 4. And I looked at it, it was good. I had to agree that it was very good, and I don't do that kind of work. I don't rewrite generative AI copy. I refuse to edit generative AI copy. I'd rather write original copy. But I decided to look at this in preparation for this webinar. And this is what I found. At first glance, it wasn't bad. It was quite good. And when I really got into it, though, I decided to look at it was for a business consulting firm. And I decided to look at the landing pages and websites of different business consulting firms. And I realized that what Chat had done was just taken, as you mentioned, Philip, the buzzwords, just taken all of the buzzwords from all of the different sites and put them together in this website's landing page. So there was nothing new in there. There was nothing original. And the worst part of it was that there was nothing
Innovative
about the
solutions,
actual
really.
company, you know? There wasn't any story. There was nothing personal about their background or anything. It didn't show me who they really are. So it was just a mix and a mix mash from all different other websites that were put together. And I had said to this chap, the client, let me speak to the client. I have to speak to the client first so that I know what the client wants. I know what their values are. I know where they're coming from. I know what their voice is. I know what style and tone they want this website to be, because I'll be speaking to them. And that chat that we have as writers with the client is so important, because this is where we get to understand exactly what they want and what they need, and that's how we cater for their writing. That's how we can write for them and write
That's
exactly
a
what they want.
very good point about voice. Let's move on to that because, as a
Hmm.
ghostwriter, very important to capture the voice of a client, a company, or, whoever you're writing for. So how can we do that better? What are your tips for everyone out there who's watching
As a
about
ghostwriter.
writing voice? Yeah, how can we study that? How can we improve at that? How can we adopt a writing voice which is more unique and less robotic?
So it's difficult for a ghostwriter. Ghostwriters are chameleons. They have to always call ghostwriters chameleons because you have to um, jump and from client to client, and you have to adapt to their tone, their voice, their style of writing. So it's quite difficult for a ghostwriter. For me, and I can only speak from my own personal experience, I did work as a ghostwriter for a short while, and the only way to be able to write in your client's voice is to be able to really to chat to your client, to find out who they are. And once you know who they are, what they stand for, it becomes easy, because then you just, you assume that chameleon coat of yours and you write like them. But
What kind of things are you, sorry to jump in, what kind of things are you looking for, or what kind of things do you note down when you hear? Is it particular phrases? Is it the way that they construct sentences? Is it the the values, the vocab? Like, what is it that makes them their
Philip, it's so
voice?
difficult to actually narrow down. You just get a sense of it. You can tell after speaking to them for an hour or so, and I usually have a Zoom chat with my clients. And particularly now when they send me books or whatever to edit, I can tell. It's so it's you have to make sure that you've kept the voice and the tone throughout the entire book, and you can tell, like I said, just from reading something that someone has written or just from speaking to them. Like I'm sure you can tell what my voice is like. I mean, you'd probably be able to write a piece in my voice by now, and I would be able to do the same for you.
Maybe we
It's
should
I
try
don't.
that. Let's
We should try that. Yeah,
switch counts next week. Yeah.
we can do that. It's an experiment.
Yeah. I mean,
What do you,
I
what do
I
you
like.
look for?
I mean, I like to, as a sort of language guy, I like to break it down. I know what you mean as a writer. You read so much and analyze
Mm,
it. It does
mm.
become intuitive. But for everyone out there who is maybe less experienced with doing that, I find it useful to break that down. Of like, what does voice actually mean? And for me, it's like it's cultural references. It's humor, and it can even be things like using language in a creative way. So, for example, I've got a couple of examples here. Um, when I write, I try on LinkedIn, especially or on social media, I try to add in uh, non words, make things up, add letters, change sounds,
I've seen
do
that.
things which are creative because a machine can't do that. It doesn't understand that if it puts a Y on a word, it might make it a bit more fun or funny. So instead of offering tips, I say, if you want more tippy tips, sign up to my newsletter. A machine can't write that because it doesn't understand. Tippy's not a word, so it just wouldn't form that. Instead of saying bullshit, I write bullshit because I don't want the the filters to kick me off the platform for swearing, but I think I can do it in audio. But yeah, bullshit, or you sort of use creative numbers or yeah, change the sounds of words to avoid that. I might put words together like linked influencers. That's again, it's not really a word, but it's a thing that maybe a couple of people talk about that. You can use alliteration, like making up names. Like I think Leah Turner calls boring business people corporate Collins, and it's fun because it's not offensive to anyone, but a corporate Colin has that double k sound, so it's alliteration. And I think creative use of language like that is something that really can show your voice or the voice of who you're writing for. Just a few examples.
I'm glad you mentioned cultural sensitivity. Did you say cultural sensitivity? Did you say cultural
I mean, we can talk about it. I think I said cultural references, but
cultural
yeah,
references? Yeah,
cultural sensitivity is another
just
important
yeah, something I just thought of.
discussion.
Yeah, that the AI tools or Gen AI won't have really. I mean, I've done a few experiments with it, and let me give you an easy example, a quick example with names, for instance. I've put in the prompts, and a lot of people will say it depends on the prompts that you put in, and you've got to be creative with your prompts, and you've got to keep prompting and prompting and prompting, and that's something we'll come to at the end of this. But I have done this, and I've experimented with chat, and I've experimented with Bard, and I've noticed that when you ask them to do, say, a story or a case study, you know, for a client case study or a client story, for example, they will come up with names like Susan and I can't think of any other names, but these generic names, these westernized generic names or Eurocentric names, always. And it doesn't matter where your article is going to be or who you're writing for. And yes, you can put in all of those prompts, but they will still come up with these generic sounding names, for instance. That's just an example that I'm giving now to say. So I don't think that at the moment, and possibly this could happen in the future, but right now, Gen AI is not able to adapt voice, tone, style to the different cultures. I
Yeah,
don't think it
yeah.
can.
I'd add to that. It doesn't understand where the line is between
Hmm.
acceptable and unacceptable, and often that line is where writers should be dabbling because it can make your text a bit dangerous or fun. Of course, we don't want to offend anyone, but AI goes the other way so much that it would never make a joke about, corporate business people, because it's all that might offend someone. So, or about a particular culture, which, we can joke about things, but just bear in mind where the line is, and that line's always changing. So that's where we sort of stay ahead of it as well, in terms of like writing voice. What about humor, Shamila? I'm moving us on to the topic that we wanted to talk about.
That we
Writing
like,
funny.
that we both like.
Yeah.
They are,
How
just to
can
sum
how
up
can
the.
writers, develop that and stay ahead of the particularly unfunny generative AI?
So, as I said earlier on, what makes writing human? And there are a few factors that make writing human, and I mean, humor is a big part of it. So we spoke about voice, we spoke about nuances, we spoke about quirks, we spoke about emotion, style, cultural sensitivity. We're probably going to touch on storytelling a little bit later. These are all the things, all the factors that make us stand out as human writers. And humor is a big part of it. As we know, Gen AI is not able to produce that kind of humor, the humor that we have, the humor that comes naturally to us. Um, and I know you want to talk a lot about this, Phil, so I'm going to let you talk about it because I actually wrote a
Desperate.
series of articles, a series of posts last year on how we can incorporate humor into our writing. And I've put in like a whole lot of tips and tricks and so on for people, not tricks, but tips on how you can incorporate humor in your writing. And I think that's very important. This is what's going to make us so different as well. And when we talk about humor, we don't talk about just, funny jokes or whatever. There are subtle ways of including humor in your writing. One of my favorites, and I know that Philip reminded me about this, is that, for example, let's take a twisted cliche. You remember that, Philip? So we have one of the tips that I gave in my series of humor posts, and there were 6 of them. Was the twisted cliche and how we can use the twisted cliche to incorporate humor into our writing. Now, this is something that a Gen AI cannot do. What is a twisted cliche? Well, you know what a cliche is. So, for example, when we say the grass is always greener on the other side, you can say the grass is always greener if you water it. Or uh, try, or what was it? There's something about succeed and until you try, or something like, I can't remember
I
now. But
think it's like
what was it?
um,
If you try,
if at first you don't
don't
succeed, then
succeed
parachuting isn't for you.
for
Something like
you, that skydiving isn't for you. If at first you don't succeed, the cliche is, if at first you don't succeed, try again. But we can twist it to say, if at first you don't succeed, then skydiving is not for you, for example. Now, that is the type of creativity that we have, that humans have, that Gen AI will never be able to replicate. No, I don't think so. I don't think they will be able to do it because this comes naturally to us. It's just something that we do, and we can do it on the spur of the moment as well.
Yeah, just to jump in on that, the reason that
Mm.
AI can't understand humor is like that, is it analyzes words. It can't grasp the meaning of a joke like that, of because that's a great joke, because what's not said is, if you don't succeed at skydiving, you die and you hit the ground, and that's what makes it funny. But that's unsaid. So actually, AI cannot impart any meaning between the words, and it cannot understand any meaning between the words. So that's another tip, really, is whether you're writing a story, a joke, or anything which is more creative and human focused, remember that the reader is forming a lot of the meaning there. The reader's
Mm.
finding that joke
Yeah,
funny because they're
yeah,
filling it in and
yeah.
they're participating in it. And that's the beauty of human writing. And that's definitely what Gen AI can't do unless it's prompted why that particular joke is funny, or how it might understand something like that.
Human hands. I like what
Great. Yeah, I'm
Maria
just
said
reading
there. Uh,
Maria's comment. Get your
yeah,
questions in, everyone, by the way. We'll be answering questions in a little bit after a couple more tippy tips. What's Maria saying? It doesn't understand what's human. Indeed, I bet we've all seen AI generated imagery of humans. What it's doing with human hands, prime example. Yeah, sure. I think
yeah.
it's such a big conversation, isn't it? Generative AI, whether it's, because it can generate a lot of things now, not just writing, but yeah, I'm sure there's some
Um,
designers, there's people among us who would.
Sorry to interrupt you, Phil, but can we really learn humor, Paul? Paul's mentioned that humans learn humor, and but Gen AI doesn't learn. Gen AI just writes and produces content and it's just data that it gathers from everywhere, and information that we've given it. Can it really create humor? Can it produce
Yeah, I
humor?
I would agree. I'd say that's a very good question, Paul, and well brought up. It can learn if that something's funny, right? If a joke has been upvoted or been written down enough times, it will say that's a funny joke that humans like. But it can't learn to put those two aspects together to create something new, which is a joke that humans would
Mm,
would like.
mm,
It could
mm.
modify a word, but it wouldn't know if or why humans would find that pun funny or not. So I would say it could do something like create an anti-joke. Why did the chicken cross the road? And then just put some random, to drive a car in a Formula One race. And you're like,
Yeah.
that's an anti-joke, which is kind of funny, but it's only funny because it's completely wrong. But yeah, great comment, and thanks for that question. Right, have we got anything else to say on humor? Have I got anything else to share on that? Couple of things I wanted to say. I'm going to drop a link in the comments, and I think Shamila will. I'll just do that now.
Oh
Uh,
yes, a link
an
to my
article that,
my posts on humor. There's a link that I've included here, Phil, on the last post on the humor writing series, and in that post there's links in the comment section to the other posts on humor. And I know you've
great.
written an article on humor too.
Yeah, I've just added that one. I'm going to add yours, Shamila, when I get the chance.
Okay.
I will do that in a second. Next time you're filling everyone in about storytelling.
Mm.
But yeah, a couple of tips on humor just to go through first. Have a look at the article. There's 9.5 ways to be funny and to use especially language to like build some humor into your work, and again something that you have as a benefit over AI. Just as a quick look at like some of those, you can create fake words. You can create words which are twisted or improvised, which have a funny sound. Again, only you know what sounds funny in English or in any language, or just has like a modification. So I did a post this week, I think, about fake marketing buzzwords, and I wrote things like cost per clonk and infograzzle and Internet of Turds and lots of other ones which I found funny. I hope everyone else did too. But it's because they're modified words or made up. And again, if you ask generative AI to make up words, well, I'm sure it could, but it may not even make up sayable words. It might just put letters together, which
Hmm. It
form.
can make up words. I mean, yesterday, I think it was Manda who did
Mm,
a post on the bot, not the vacuum cleaning one, but there's a new one called it doesn't have a name. It's a lawn bot. It mows the grass, and she was
okay.
looking for names for this. And if you put in a good enough description with your prompt, she tried to come get names for this, and it does. It'll take a word from the description, and then it will take a word of what the thing does, and try and put the words together. But none of them sounded right. There was just
Mm,
something off about all of the names. There was a list of 10 names, and they were all off, and they weren't interesting. You know,
yeah.
it was
I mean,
just
suppose
pick a
that's the way that
hyphen
it
in
can.
between two words.
You can get closer to an idea. You might get closer to a joke or to a name for a product or something
Yeah,
if you do
yeah.
use it. Maybe that will improve. Who knows? Yeah. Final quick tip on humor is to use images. What I said about making the reader fill in the meaning and participate in the process of consuming words. The best tool that you have is to make the reader think of something. So if I say to everyone, think of an elephant wearing a pink tutu riding a tiny tricycle on a tightrope. that's not possible. I don't think. But you can imagine it, you can see it in your minds. And so using these images, these funny images, and putting them in the minds of your readers, again, is a way that you can connect with them on a human level. And I think that's always something which is powerful and can be funny too, if you use the right image. Great. Right. I've talked a lot. Shamila, over to you. We're going to answer questions in just a minute. Let's have a quick chat about stories and storytelling. How can writers develop that technique so that they stay ahead of the game?
Okay, so I think a lot of people write about storytelling, and I think there's been a lot of talk about storytelling. So I don't really want to spend too much time on it, but I did put together a carousel on storytelling techniques, so that's also going to be there. There's a link for that. There are all the different techniques that we can use, storytelling techniques, but not just for fiction. It can carry over to nonfiction as well. Now, storytelling is so important, and we've seen that Gen AI can write stories, it can produce stories, but the stories that we tell are based on our experiences. They're based on our expertise. They're based on our personal experiences, what we've lived, what we know, what our case studies from our clients, from our businesses, and I don't think that Gen AI can give you that same kind of personal storytelling or personal anecdotes and incorporate all of the things that we've talked about in there with the humor and so on and so on. Storytelling is so important. That's how we reach people. That's how we evoke emotions. We build trust. We connect using storytelling and storytelling techniques. And I am not sure that Gen AI can do it the way we can. What do you think? I'll put it out there to everyone. Let's talk about that. Have you done it? Have you tried to get a personal storytelling from Gen AI? What did it
I mean,
sound like?
I've played around with it. It's not very good at stories because I think
Mhm.
stories in their nature are so much more complex than just language. Often the meaning of stories, like in creative writing especially, is so much more built by the reader and hidden between the lines and outside of the bounds of the pages and the time that the story takes place. I think that's again what AI can't. They've got no data on that, so they can write in a they can include events which are story like, but they can't create that empathy and meaning. And I think
No.
that's what makes human stories more beautiful.
Is that
My tip is,
empathy? Empathy is the key word there.
yeah, I mean, my tip on storytelling, whether you're, well, I imagine a lot of the people here today are non-fiction writers, or they're writing for B2B, or other purposes. My tip is to read fiction, and especially like short fiction or flash fiction. That's much more creative with the way it uses time and words as well, and concepts. You can start writing in a way which activates your subconscious if you use writing prompts. So there are some great writers. The few that spring to mind for me are Meg Pocrass, Kathy Fish, Ken Elks. They're all flash fiction writers that I really love and I've been to workshops with. And they use a lot of prompts to really bring out the subconscious, all of those weird things which have meaning, which are trapped in our minds. But once we get them on paper, they help readers to build the meaning as well. So yeah, let me add those names into the chat as well on LinkedIn. Flash fiction
Well,
readers.
while you're doing that, can I talk about because before we open this to question and answers, there are two more things that I want to do.
Go
One,
ahead.
I want to summarize the ways in which writers of articles, nonfiction, ghostwriters, article writers, B2B writers, and so on, can actually now work with generative AI. Okay, I'm going to do that. But before I do that, and because somebody in the comments also mentioned this, I really, from a book perspective, from editing books, from working with authors, from that perspective, I do want to talk about plagiarism. Okay, so there's a big risk of plagiarism and copyright infringements at the moment. Whose work is AI currently using? Because the data is inputted into them, and this is where to give you an article or to give you a book, they are taking ideas, experiences, stories, data from everyone else. So nothing is original. Nothing that's coming from there is original. Everything has been put in there. It actually belongs to somebody else. I mean, Chat can write you a book and pull out bits and pieces from other books. Now, who does that work belong to? There's this whole issue going on at the moment about the plagiarism and who this work belongs to. The other thing is that if you're writing a book, if you're an author and you've decided to input your manuscript or your draft into ChatGPT-4 to do a review for you, or to do a summary for you, or to just edit for you, that book, do you know that your manuscript is now in ChatGPT-4 and it is now public domain? Anyone can take parts of your book, or Chat can take parts of your book. And if somebody else gives Chat a prompt that requires that information, they can use it before your book is published. And what do you do with that? Now, that is a major ethical issue, a major legal issue even. What rights do you have? Your book is not copyrighted yet, and it can be used by anyone before you've published it. So that's very important, and I don't know if people have thought about that. You've put your article into Chat. Someone else can give the same exact prompt, or you've given a prompt. Chat has given you an article. Someone else somewhere else gives the same prompt and gets an article. Who belongs to that? Who does it belong to? You know, are you going to use it and then somebody else uses the same type of article, or the ideas are the same? So these are questions that we need to look at as well, because the ideas that come out of Gen AI is not original. Okay, it's taken from other people. It's other people's works that are on there that are being reproduced.
Yeah, I mean, this is straying into publishing and like getting. We could probably do a whole nother session on the future of publishing. My
Yep.
perspective is that copyright is in grave danger and is basically dead because of AI. And I think figuring out ways that you can maintain not ownership but getting value from what you produce is one challenge. Really the only value that we can get is from new things that we produce. That's why it's so crucial to do things that the AI can't just nick and put out. So that's my 2 cents on it.
I just wanted people to be aware.
Hours.
I just want people to be aware, because I work with a lot of aspiring authors and people that are just writing their first manuscripts and books and so on. I just want them to be aware that if you put your manuscript into any of the generative AI tools for a review, it's out there. It can be used. Your work can be used before you publish a book. That's just a little warning to people.
I'm scrolling through the comments looking for questions. If you have questions about how to write humanly, then now is the time. Get them in. I'm sure I've seen 1 or 2 in the comments, but I'll try and bring one up. There was one question about how many languages I speak. I think I've already answered that one.
Can I just sum up quickly? Are we going into question and answer?
We will do in a second, just because we're running out of time a bit, but there aren't too many
questions. Can I quickly sum up? I just wanted to give a couple of quick tips. that
Yeah.
I just want to tell the writers, new writers and so on, well, any writer, to start experimenting with AI tools. If you haven't already, it's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. You're going to have to learn to live with it. You're going to have to learn to work with it. So the best thing is to try and learn it, learn how it works, understand how it works, stay updated with everything, because improvements are being made so quickly. These developments, you need to stay updated. You need to, you really, if you're a writer, you really, really need to master your craft. If you want to be a good writer, and if you want to maintain your authenticity, and you want to, you really have to be a good writer. You have to, as Phil says, you're going to have to read, read a lot of different styles, work on your craft, master your craft. You're going to have to expand your current skill set. You're going to have to learn how to prompt. Prompting skills are going to become quite important in the future. And many writers who have lost their jobs can now become, what do you call them? Prompt engineers or prompt writers, and learn how to write prompts. You're going to have to develop your storytelling skills, and you're going to have to develop the ability to integrate AI into your writing. Find out how you can use it, how it can help you, how it can enhance your creativity, because AI is good for, as we know, for generating ideas. AI is good for brainstorming. AI is good for conducting research, but that's just a starting point. That's what it can do for you, and where do you take it from there? How can it enhance your creativity? How can you now become even more creative, given all of the what AI can do? Okay, I think that's quite important, and I think that it is important to stay positive, because many writers are so apprehensive about this and they are so worried about this. But I think that we will still need writers. I think there's still going to be work for writers.
Yeah, I mean, I'd add to that. I think, yeah, I agree that we do need to understand what it can do. It can help us. We can incorporate it. But the way that we can stay positive is to understand what it cannot ever do. And
Yeah,
that's a lot of the things that we've talked about today. So
yeah,
develop your opinion writing, your humor, your storytelling, your mastery of language, all of these aspects that we've talked about. And importantly, read other writers who can do that as well. If you read, boring SEO blogs, you're going to learn how to write that. And that's the kind of thing that machine content will contribute a lot to. So really, if you're looking to have a long-term writing career, you got to focus on the extremely human side of things. My
yeah,
perspective, probably not
yeah,
everyone's, but yeah, think about what it can't do. Great.
yeah.
We've got a question from Imran here. I'm gonna have a scroll through and see if we've got any more questions. What would you say to this one,
How
Shamila?
can I get rid of AI comments? Because I get so how to nicely tell people without offending them. I've had that. I've never had it again. I've told people in the comments. I've responded that are they writing this, or is it an AI that's writing it? And I've had a few people that have never visited my posts again because I've just asked them the question. I'm not responding to AI comments. I'm sorry. I want to connect with human people here on LinkedIn, and that's who we're engaging with.
It's not even a conversation, is it? Because AI just summarizes the post and says, "Oh
Yeah,
yes, this is very important. Great perspective. Keep going and saying what you're saying." It's not contributing to a conversation. So I think, yeah, you don't need to offend people, but I would agree. Just write back and say, this. It also shows that you can spot AI writing, so that you can deliver something different to that. If you say, "Hey, this was generated by ChatGPT," it's obvious. I'd prefer you to write your own thoughts. That's not going to offend anyone.
I
And
haven't
then if they
seen
do
much
get
of it
offended, block them.
recently. Imran, I have not seen much of it, too much of it recently. I think there've been a few people that have spoken out against it in posts, and I think that there's been a lot of chat about it. And so I haven't seen much of it recently. People are realizing, I think it was just a bit of a novelty, I hope. But I'm hoping people are not doing it anymore. I don't know what I answered. Thanks for the detailed response. I don't think I answered you, Sue. Did I answer you? I'm just looking at the
You answered
comments.
something that
I answered something. If you don't mind, Phil, someone just asked now in the comments, Bucket Uzuno, is copyright and royalty dying? Oof, I think that's going to be another webinar on its own, as you said, on book publishing and about copyright.
I'm reticent to show it on screen because we will get into a half an hour.
Yeah, no, I think that will be a webinar
So
on its own.
yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for that comment. Maybe we'll just contact you to let you know our thoughts, or we'll respond in the comments. But we have sadly run out of time. It's gone like a flash. So,
I don't believe it, because when you told me an hour and then 40 minutes, and I thought, well, that's going to be a long time. What am I going to say in all that time? And it's already an hour, and I've still got lots more to say.
there's one thing we know about writers is that they can bang on about writing for forever. So perfect format for a webinar.
Can we take a few more questions?
I don't think there are too many other questions in the chat, but I will say, if you've got any questions, if you're watching this on replay, or if you've got any other questions, you can always just reach out to Shamila or I or me, and or just write them in the comments, and we'll get back to you, because it would be good to carry on the conversation.
A few people wanted to know if this was going to be available afterwards, and yes, there will be a record.
You can watch it here on LinkedIn or on YouTube as well, on my channel. So just send me a message if you somehow are watching this but not able to watch the replay. It doesn't really make sense.
And a comment by Paul about playing devil's advocate. That's fine. We want someone to play devil's advocate, Paul. So we're happy with that. We just ran out of time. And no, you're not being pessimistic. You're not being pessimistic.
That's fine. Thanks for dropping by, Paul, as ever. Paul is the co-host of my podcast as well, Trouble with Writing. We'll be back sometime next, this month. Anyway, I'm babbling. It is the end of the webinar. Thanks, everyone, for coming. And please feel free to get in touch with us. We'd love to chat and see you around LinkedIn or wherever else you write. And keep it human.
Oh, yes. And I had a few book suggestions to give to you. So you can either DM me or contact me, or I'll just put it in a post. Books to improve your writing, really. So
Great.
for those,
I've added your posts into the chat, Shamila, and you can add your book suggestions.
And there was a self-editing checklist. Did you put the PDF in there, Philip? The self-editing checklist?
No, you'll have to just link to that. I added your LinkedIn posts that we talked about, the storytelling techniques and the incorporating humor. So yeah, the other ones, contact Shamila for that PDF.
Sorry, Imran says we ignore these questions. No, we're not quite robots. We're getting there, though.
We answered one of your questions. I must have missed another one, but we will get back to you on them when we see them in the chat. All right. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, Philip, for organizing this and for inviting me to co-host with you. By the way, people, this was my first one, so maybe there'll be more after this.
You heard it here
I'll do them on my own, too. I'll be brave enough.
All right. See you then, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Okay. Bye-bye.